Solar hot water heating actually has an evolution. In 1767, Horace de Saussure decided to see how successfully glass could trap solar heat. What he said was, we know it's true that in a coach or in a apartment where the sun comes through a window, it's warmer than where there isn't a window. So he decided that he would build some insulated boxes and put glass over them and see what temperatures he could obtain. He found that he could get things rather hot, but then what also came up to his mind was, could glass imitate the atmosphere? And this is where we developed the greenhouse effect also. So he hypothesized the reason why it's hotter in the lowlands than in the Alps was because the atmosphere was rarer or thinner in the Alps. So to equalize things, he built this box with glass covers, took it to the lowlands, got a certain amount of temperature which was above the boiling point of water. Very simple contraption, just a black painted box with glass covers. Then he went up to the Alps and he was able to get the same heat up there, concluding that glass covers imitate the atmosphere. The question, did we have to wait for glass for solar hot water? Indeed, yes. Glass was invented by the Romans, and then it was used by the Romans to trap solar heat for their building structures, especially their baths, because they were using so much wood they wanted to conserve. And actually studies have been done of the all Roman baths are south-facing. And the architects of the day said we should face the Roman baths to the sun or south during winter. That's where the sun is during the winter time, and that was because to keep them warm. Physics tests have shown that on a sunny day in Italy in the winter time, you could get all your heat in a bathing area of 100 degrees Fahrenheit through this method. And even on cloudy days, you could get a certain percentage. So then glass was something that was forgotten in architecture for about 800 years because of the fact that until you had central governments, different groups would come into a town and break all the glass. And so it was a rather expensive proposition. So if you look at the way people dress, they dress rather warmly, even if they were wealthy. And if you go to castles about the 14th century, 15th century, you don't see any glass. But as things stabilized, people began to use glass again. And people use glass not only for buildings, but also for greenhouses to force the fruits or the other plants that they were getting from the New World to grow in a European climate, which was also during the Little Ice Age, so they needed the extra solar energy, the extra trapped solar energy. So this is what prompted de Saussure to make these experiments. De Saussure hot box was used by Samuel P. Langley climbing Mount Whitney, which was very well covered by the news media in the 1880s, where he carried one of these hot boxes, and even though it was freezing on Mount Whitney, he was able to melt snow inside the glass-covered box when he faced it to the sun. Now Charles Kemp read this article, and he said, why not put the tanks underneath glass, and we'll sell them as commercial solar water heaters. And that was 1891 when he filed the patent. That was in Maryland, and he thought it would be of particular use for gentlemen whose wives went on holiday and they were left with trying to light the stove, things like that, to heat water. Because the only way people heated water then was by burning wood or burning coal. So some gentlemen from California saw the device and thought this was really, really great stuff, because in California at the time, they had no natural gas, they had no oil, and the natural gas that they used was not natural, it was called artificial gas. It was actually made from coal gasification. And the coal came from either Colorado or Australia, so it was quite expensive. And also there were a lot of farmers who had no connections to any of these sources, no pipes, no nothing, and they were doing fairly well. They were fairly affluent, and they wanted to have the same type of lifestyle as those in the city. So they became the primary customers of these solar water heaters. But they also spread to places like Pasadena and also to Oakland and other places because they heated water fairly well, which not only saved money, but also it was a real drag in the summertime to have to heat your stove, which heated up the house when everything was so hot, to heat water. Then what happened was there was one problem with this device. It both heated and stored the water in one place. So in 1909, which I hope people will celebrate, came the invention of the solar water heater that we use today, where the solar water heating is separated from the storage. And so the storage was remote, and you could have hot water day and night, which was the name of the company in Los Angeles. That became very successful. Then with the discovery of the oil fields and natural gas in Southern California and piping it into Los Angeles, the day and night solar water heater company used the solar technology to develop the gas water heating technology, the modern gas water heating technology. And the owner became so successful from the gas water heating business as well that he ended up being the CEO of Carrier Corporation through various stock deals after Carrier bought his gas water heater company. The solar water heater industry in California flourished between 1893, I would say, until about 1920s to about 1930. But it also migrated to Florida, where they had no natural gas. So the solar water heater industry didn't die, it went elsewhere. In Florida, it started up like about 1924. Really got going where I think it was about half the city used solar water heating. And then it came to an abrupt stop when World War II came along and the use of copper was rationed. Then after the war, a lot of the vets who had been in Florida stayed in Florida, and they formed a much bigger base for the utility companies, and the utility companies promoted very aggressively electric water heating. They especially focused on people who had solar water heaters, offering them inexpensive electric water heaters. And so that was the demise of the solar water heater industry in Florida. But it didn't die there either. It went to Israel. And in Israel, there were valleys and peaks in the industry. The industry began when Israel was running out of power. You had actually power police who would come into homes to make sure you weren't using electricity during certain hours. And so the solar water heater was quite appealing. Then when Israel conquered the Sinai and got about 50% of its oil from the Sinai, the solar water heater industry diminuted. But after the lesson of the Yom Kippur War in the 70s, the Israeli government asked the question, do we want to see an industry that fluctuates with the vicissitudes of other fuels? And so they decided, no, we don't. And so in 1983, they mandated solar water heating for Israel. And so now 93% of the population in Israel uses solar water heating. The solar water heater industry also spread from Israel to Cyprus, and this is kind of interesting for me. Palestinians and Israelis don't get along, but since the Israeli occupation of the West Bank, a tremendous amount of Palestinians now use Israeli solar water heaters. And the same thing happened on Cyprus, where Greeks and Turks don't get along, but both the Greeks and the Turks who are living there use solar water heaters. So when the conflict in Cyprus erupted, a lot of Greek Cypriots emigrated to Greece, where they brought solar water heaters to Greece, which is one of the leading countries in Europe now to use solar water heating. And that industry spread to Germany and to Austria and to other countries in a smaller way. And today it's really growing in Spain, where they mandate solar water heating in most of the municipalities. But the real player in the solar water heater industry today is China. I got to know the person who was the lead commercializer of solar water heating in China, Hong Ming, where he was concerned that his mother her rheumatism, her arthritis was getting worse and worse because in China they only had cold water. And she had to do the dishes, she had to clean the house and all that stuff with the cold water. It was really hard on her. So he developed the solar water heater in China. And today about 76% of the world's solar water heating is done in China. China has a huge solar water heater industry where I think there's about 35 million solar water heaters installed. The Chinese began in the 1980s, but it only really took off when the Chinese liberalized the commercialization of industry. And this man used the same communist propaganda techniques to sell solar water heaters, big parades, things like that. When you say solar now, people think of photovoltaics. Photovoltaics produces, throughout the world, about 5 gigawatts of electrical power. If you change the thermal equivalent into gigawatts, it's about 115, 120 gigawatts of power that's produced by solar water heating throughout the world. Why is the United States behind in the curve in solar water heating? The fact is, first of all, there's no political infrastructure. In Israel, like I said before, it was mandated. In Germany, also there's certain, I guess you would call them incentives. And in Spain, as I said, it's mandated because the Europeans take the problem of global warming more seriously. And there's discussions now of mandating solar water heating throughout Europe. China is another problem where there was not the infrastructure for natural gas. And as people's incomes rose, they wanted a better lifestyle. They wanted hot water, sort of similar to what happened in California at the turn of the century, where they wanted hot water, but there was no infrastructure to provide it, and the power is quite expensive.
So I guess people really usually think of solar hot water being effective in warm, sunny climates, but is it limited to just those kinds of circumstances, or can it be used all over the place?
It seems to be one of the largest per capita uses is in Austria, for example, because the sun is ubiquitous. It's unfortunate that in places like, well, right here where we have the Persian Gulf of solar energy, it's not being used, but in places like Germany, it's being used on a large scale. It would, of course, you would get you would use smaller solar water heaters here in California. Also, the economics, like in China, they're much cheaper. I think they're about $200 or $300 a unit. Also, I think, and you see this both in photovoltaics and solar water heating. Also, there's the consumption where people use much more hot water or electricity in the United States than they do in other parts of the world. What amount of energy could be saved by solar water heating alone? Well, in Israel, I think it's about 10 or 15%. They use electricity as the other source, although they might use natural gas now, but they don't use natural gas or electricity because, like I say, over 90% of the people use solar. The same is true in Cyprus. About 90% of the people use solar. Also, China is not that high a percentage per capita, but gross numbers are very high because of the population. And so you have about, like I said, 35 million solar water heaters, which is a huge amount, but as a per capita, it's small compared to Israel or Cyprus.
Well, how about Australia and Cuba and the people in the more southern climes? Are they not using solar hot water? I thought you mentioned that.
The question about people in more southern climes, the biggest, I think, problem is economics. Is you require both a fairly affluent group of people who, want, because hot water is a luxury. So a fairly affluent, and that's what you're seeing in China, the middle class.
About India?
Yeah, India is a good question. India has a very, very few solar water heaters. Also Turkey. Turkey is another country that's very big in solar water heating. They have about 5 or 6 million solar water heaters. So you have that Near Eastern crescent, Israel, Jordan, the West Bank, that you have a lot of solar water heaters.
Now, are you at all familiar with the solar hot water heating bill that just was signed into law by?
Yeah. I'm fairly familiar with the solar water heating bill that was signed into California.
Can you tell us about it? What does it mean in your judgment?
Well, from what I could understand, the idea is to get 200,000 solar hot water heaters installed in California. And really, when you consider that, there are about 30 million people, so there are about 10 million households. That's pretty small.
Do you think that will have any impact?
Well, the question, and this is the question of incentives for photovoltaics too, is where does the product come from? And most of the product is made outside of the United States because the fact that other countries have been more like friendly. For example, most of the solar photovoltaics are made in either China, or in Germany.
And the solar water heaters?
Solar water heaters, where are most of the solar water heaters made? That's more of a decentralized industry, of course, because 76% of the solar water heaters are used in China. China has the largest industry. Israel has a large industry for export. So does Greece. Germany has a large, it's also an infrastructure because you need various materials for the solar hot water heating. And you have a lot of those in Germany also. And I believe they're popping up now in Spain. Because what happens is when you actually find a population that wants the product, you try to get the product close by.
So do you think that this new hot water bill has the potential of kind of kickstarting local and regional manufacture and production here?
Okay, what is the agenda of the solar water heating bill? I think the agenda is to save on natural gas. I think the agenda is to reduce global warming. I think there's multiple agendas. You know, it's kind of strange because, like, you take SunPower, which is one of the larger manufacturers of photovoltaics. They have their biggest plants in the Philippines. Or you take, in Norway, you have one of the biggest companies called Renewable Energy Corporation Group. And they just declared that they're going to build their big plant in Singapore. So it's a very globalized industry. And you have like consortiums now developing between Germany and China for solar water heating. So that's a good question. Where is it going to come from? It's like the California Solar Initiative. I don't see any big plants. In fact, there's only one big solar photovoltaic plant in California. And yet we have this very affluent solar water heating, photovoltaic program going on, where most of the material is coming from outside of the United States.
So what would have to happen to make it to localize it?
Well, the photovoltaic industry is localized in California because a lot of people are employed to put up the material.
Oh, but I'm talking about the hot water
production.
Hot water heater production, to localize it in California. What would it take? Incentives
to, like Oregon has given, where you have some of the largest solar photovoltaic plants going up in Portland. I really, 200,000 solar water heaters is really not a huge number when you consider that in a country like Israel, which has a fifth of the population of California, has over 2 to 3 million solar water heaters. So that's 10 times the amount of solar water heaters that is envisioned by the 200,000. I don't know how they came up with the number of 200,000 as the goal.
Is it even going to be possible, given that there's no copper mining, there's no, what are the things that are going to be required for solar water heaters to be viable in an age where we're seeing the price of transportation of these globalized resources from other countries is going to be, prohibitively high, it seems to me, because of peak oil, and so on. Do you think that there's a way to make solar hot water heaters viable in a less globalized economy?
Yeah. There's copper in Arizona and New Mexico. I remember as a child going to copper mines there. There's copper mines, if I'm right, in Montana also. There's definitely a lot of sand to make evacuated tubes. You know, that's a good question. I mean, that's a question that people ask as the fuel prices get higher. Will things naturally become more, like, I don't know what to call it, either provincial or insular or at home. I don't know what the words are.
Localized.
Or localized. But so far, the trend has been to find where the least expensive labor is and to build stuff there. And in fact, California, of course, has a border with Mexico where they could, and they do exploit for photovoltaics, the maquiladores in the industrial zones right below California. So even if, and also Mexico has lots of minerals, and so does Chile. So, you know, that's an interesting question that a lot of very bright people have brought up. What happens with the economy if the price of oil skyrockets? Will it become more localized? Perhaps, or perhaps not, I don't know. You know, will we, you know, with this vast population, will we go back to the Stone Age? You know, it's a real interesting question because the whole economy is based on cheap fossil fuels. In fact, the American economy, and that's part of my book, In a Forest Journey, was based on abundance of resources which are no longer available. So the question is, do we fight wars for these materials as they become scarce? Do we develop alliances? Do we use diplomacy? I've seen it all in A Forest Journey, where when wood got scarce, people colonized, people went to war, people formed alliances to get wood, which was the oil of our ancestors, and still the primary fuel of most of the world.
Well, yeah, so I was thinking, oh, as we have peak oil, we'll just move to solar hot water, because of all the things that I don't want to miss out on, it's hot water in, you know, in a time of cutbacks. But now I'm finding you got to have glass, you got to have copper. You know, I'm thinking,
at the very least,
what,
black PVC.
What else?
Made from petroleum.
Yeah, I mean, you know, how can we do hot water in a low-tech way?
How can we do hot water in a low-tech way? Well, in A Golden Thread, you'll see a photograph of iron pipes laid out on tar paper under glass, and a storage tank which uses walnut holes for insulation. So there you go. But I mean, all these technologies require material, because one of the ironies of photovoltaics is that it's both the most complex and the simplest of all electrical technologies. Complex in that it is the first quantum power source. It requires very precise engineering to get the heart of the solar cell, the p-n junction, in the correct placement. I mean, it's basically the solar photovoltaic industry is using more silicon now than the computer industry.
And,
Now, is that a limitation or an environmental concern?
That's not a limitation. Is it a limitation that photovoltaics is using more silicon than the computer industry? About 6 months ago it was. Now it's not, because there's lots of silicon. It just has to be processed correctly. And so people are developing, because the money incentive is there, people are developing better and cheaper ways of processing the silicon solely for photovoltaics.
yeah, because I heard there was a slowdown in the production because there was a scarcity of silicon, but now that caused things to be ramped up. Is that true?
There was a shortage of silicon because of the success of the photovoltaic industry, but as the manufacturers of the silicon saw that they had a customer that was going to be there for a long time, they decided to find cheaper and better ways to make more silicon, so that's becoming less and less of a problem.
So is there anything else about the history or present and future of solar hot water heating that you think people ought to think about or know?
Well, what does history teach us? History teaches us about solar water heating that if we want the technology, we have to sort of guarantee a certain use, a certain amount of use. Because if we allow it to fluctuate with the ebb and flow of other fuel sources, then one day people will be in the solar water heater business, the next day they won't. So that's the reason why the Israelis, for example, and the Spanish and the other European countries have mandated it, because they want to create a stability for investment. So I think the real lesson is that why do we want solar? And it comes down to, I think, two ideas. One is that we should be concerned about global warming. And two, we should be concerned about being dependent for fossil fuels, which are becoming more and more imported in this country. And solar water heating helps to ameliorate that way in a quite elegant and simple way. And so I think that those are the lessons, that it's not hard to do, and it's something that can make us still benefit, like Mary Beth said, she likes her showers, hot showers. And so to ameliorate the problem between a fuel source that is dirty and a shower that's clean, we can use solar.